Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Fresh Friday. I am Gareth, and I'm joined today by the one and only Mr. Liam Kingswell. How are you, matey? I don't know if I can hear you, mate. I think
Is that better?
That's better.
Hey!
That's better.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, mate?
You've got so much going on. The mute button is the last thing.
Last one I think about. It took me off guard reading that comment from Tim Elliott this morning. That made me smile.
Well, hopefully that is the bar set for today's questions, because maybe we'll answer that one today.
Yeah, maybe so.
The elephant is that guy pulling on. We will answer that by the end of today, I am sure. It's another Fresh Friday once again, ladies and gents. So thanks for joining us. For those of you who have not joined us before, welcome. And for people who have joined us before, welcome to you as well. This is the show where we talk about brand marketing and all things digital. And today, I don't think there's any secret in what the subject matter is going to be. It's right up there. It is us discussing the toughest brand problems. Quite a meaty subject. And it's not just us, is it, Liam? We've got a guest joining us as well.
We do. And I think this gentleman is probably the guy that's going to fix all of your brand problems. Like, we know it's a big subject. We know it's a challenging subject. A lot of people don't actually understand a lot of stuff about brand, or they think brand is something that it's not. So hopefully our guest will demystify some of that stuff. I hope he's okay, because he seems either he's very good at staying still, or he might have frozen. So we'll see what happens when he comes in. So we'll give him a couple of minutes, see what happens. Should be okay.
I know he's got a new camera, so it could be something to do with that.
Oh, he's back. I can see his little face moving. We can't see you yet, Matt, but I can see in the back end that you're okay.
We got him backstage. Backstage. So yeah, it is about brand. Brand is a huge subject, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Anybody watching live or on demand, be sure to get your questions in, because we will go through them questions and get you answered. So on the show, we will try and get all your questions answered. So get them in, we'll try and get them answered. Also, share the stream as well. If you're watching us on whatever social platform that you're finding us on today, hit that little share button and get this out, because you're doing us a great service. And also, you might be helping one of your colleagues, friends, co-workers, whoever out, because brand is a subject that I think anyone can learn about and, help improve their day-to-day life in business.
And one more thing I will say is there's loads of people on YouTube, so massive love to you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe, because there's a lot more content coming your way over the coming weeks up until Christmas. And we've got a great guest on today. We've got a great guest on for the next Fresh Friday, which is a familiar face, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure to tune in for that one as well.
Yeah. Before we introduce Matt, we've got a couple of shout-outs. Mr. Kingswell, anybody in chat?
Yeah, Tim Elliott's here saying about the elephant. He's like, sorry about that. Don't worry, Tim. You don't need to apologise. Mr. Chris Smith's here as well. And we've also got Fiona Surrey here as well. So welcome to the stream, everyone.
Oh, yes. Nice. So keep active, guys. We're going to be hitting a lot of tough subjects this morning. So to introduce our guest, Mr. Matt Davies, the second time on Fresh Friday, might I add. He was here with us on season 1, and we had to bring him back. He is a good friend of the show, and I'd say a kindred spirit as well. He is the author of Storyatagy, and he also is a fellow graduate, as are we. We need our little badges, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Of Level C Branding Masterclass. And he's here with us today, Mr. Matt Davies. Welcome to the show. Booyah! Booyah, indeed.
There he is.
Booyah.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right. I'm excited to be here for second time to be a victim of your beauty. And,
a victim?
And quips and insults. So I'm ready. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it this time round. So we can pick up and I can undo all the mistakes from the first time round. So thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, there was no mistake. There was only mistakes on my part. I was feeling very sick on the first stream we ever did, and I remember feeling so under the weather, and I was under the desk, and Gav's like, "Come on, get the stream going." I'm like, "I feel so sick."
He's like that. He's mean, isn't he? He's mean sometimes. I feel him.
Yeah, it's okay. We're all good though. I'm glad you're here, and there's lots of people to say. There's a couple of people here that I think might know you. We've got Never Too Late to Our Journey. Welcome to the stream. Diana is here as well. Margaret is here. Tulu Mama is here. And Marja is here as well. Welcome to the stream, everyone. Good to see you all.
Welcome. So Matt, I believe you're joining us from a different location. Haven't you just moved?
Yeah, so a bit of a life dream. Just living a bit of a life dream at the moment. Feel very blessed. We've bought a small farm in South Wales, and of course, previously we were in Nottingham, not too far away from the city, and before that, London. So I'm gradually fleeing people. Right, to kind of keep the brain calm. My brain is constantly active, constantly switched on. So it's helpful to get out in the countryside. We've got a bit more of a rural lifestyle, but obviously I'll always be back in Nottingham and London all the time as COVID lifts. So it's not that those locations won't see the back of me, but yeah. So I'm just kind of switched up the lifestyle a little bit, and yeah, I've got a lot of mud around me at the moment.
Welcome to the countryside.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Welcome to my neck of the woods.
Yeah, the first thing my wife did was she was all excited, and we viewed this property in the summer. And when she rocked up, she had obviously like the front door key, all the kids in the back. I was in another car. She rocked up. She drove straight into the yard, which in the summertime had a really solid kind of lovely grass kind of grounding, but in the wintertime, pure mud. So the first thing we did was get the car stuck. So we're learning a lot as we go through, but we're enjoying it loads, and it is absolutely wonderful part of the world. So we're in Carmarthenshire, which is beautiful.
Lucky.
Really is. And yeah, it is definitely different throughout the season. So enjoy that. That's going to be entertaining, and I suppose a nice challenge as well. You know, you get to change your tires and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure it's quite a lot of fun.
Mate, I'm not doing any of that stuff, but yeah, I probably should. You need to tell me about that. I'm from London. Like I've literally, I'm talking to local yokels around here, and I'm just like, guys, seriously, I don't know anything, so please educate me in the ways of the country. And that could get me in a lot of trouble, but I found it's been all right so far. So yeah, there you go. Word of advice. Ask for advice.
Maybe guys in chat can help. Is there anybody who lives in the country? Let us know in the comments and give Matt some tips. Come on, let's
I need it.
Let's share knowledge. It's a two-way thing, this show.
There is actually
thank you.
There is actually a comment from someone as well. Says it's very unusual to see Matt in colour for once. Because he's always in black and white.
Do you know why? There's a little secret. Who said that?
Thulu Mama. Thulu Mama.
Okay, Thulu. Thank you. That's very observant of you, Thulu. There's a secret behind that, and that is I have anyone that's seen me speak publicly will know that I have a tendency just to go red. Right? It's a thing. So what I found is that if I make everything black and white, nobody knows. And so I get away with my rosé appearance. So there's a little secret dropped Fresh Friday. There we are. Tip, if you go red, go black and white. That's my advice.
I'm sure there's a way I can get you black and white in stream, but I won't play around with that now. But for next time, maybe.
Yeah, could you make me more beautiful as well?
We don't need to do any of that. People are very happy about Matt in Technicolor, as we're going to call it, and it is the season to be jolly. So we need colour, don't we, in our life right now?
I guess so.
Matt, welcome to the stream. Now, before we jump in with the topic, which is the toughest brand problems, there's one thing we're going to do before we move on to the fresh fire round, and that is your brief description of what brand is, because even though we have done this a couple of times on this show, I think that's worth getting right now, and then we can move on with the rest of the subject, because I think understanding that brand isn't a logo is something that people still need to go on that journey. But for you, just in in the simplest way possible, what is brand before we move on to the rest of the subjects?
Yeah, so pleased that you asked that, because if you hadn't have asked it, that's where I always start anyway, because you're right. Branding has this identity crisis, slightly ironic. We think of brand as a logo and fonts and a set of colors, which is probably what the average person would kind of say if you said, what's a brand? But I think it's a lot bigger. I don't think that's a helpful definition. For me, the meaning of brand is the meaning that people attach to you and your offer. So it exists in their hearts and minds. The meaning is it belongs to them, right? And all you can do is branding, which is the game I'm in, which is the attempt to manage that meaning. And so you've got brand, which is the meaning people attach to you, and branding, which is the attempt to manage the meaning. And so what we're trying to do as businesses at the moment is we're trying, businesses that are trying to succeed, trying to thrive, trying to survive. The best ones are the ones that are taking that most seriously. They're managing the meaning, not just in the logo and the fonts, which obviously is part of it, but also in fundamentally what they do for customers and how they communicate with those customers. What does the customer become? So having that definition is more helpful, I think, for businesses, because what it does is it forces people to step outside of their own little cocooned world of their business and them wanting to make money. And it helps them to think about all of their activities through the lens of what the customer thinks about them, through the meaning the customer is going to attach to them because of the things that the activities they're going through. So hope that answers the question. The meaning people attach to you.
100%. And yeah, you are preaching to the converted already here, Matt. So I'm sure fellow followers at Fresh Friday will also agree in that. But for people who are coming here and not talked about brand with us before, that's exactly our take on that as well. I think it's the same life lessons we learned from Mr. Marty Newmeyer as well, which we've got to give a nod to, because I believe you just graduated as well. So congratulations on that last certificate which you've earned.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Marty, a lot of his thinking, he's a huge influence on me. Sort of coming from a design background, I kind of have that in a sort of a similar way of ticking, a way of thinking, but also knowing that design itself does not solve the toughest problems, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But brand, I believe, does, and brand thinking does. So yeah, so Marty's awesome. I did the second tier course, one of the first graduates from that course. Yeah, brilliant. So Gareth, if you ever get a chance, I know we both did the tier one, but if you get a chance to do tier two, it moves it on even more and teaches you loads of great things. So yeah, big nod to Marty and to his business partner, Andy Starr, who I think you've had on the show as well. So yeah, definitely recommend that.
Yeah, we are big fans, and 100% we're gonna try and work our way through that. Liam, we've got a couple of questions come in just before we move on to Fresh Fry round with Matt.
Well, not so much questions, but we got a few comments in, I suppose. Chris Smith's given some advice from moving from London to Wales himself. He says, moved from London to Wales. The big thing I noticed was how slow everything was. It took time to get used to it. And he said the number one tip is Welsh cakes rock. Welsh cakes do kick ass.
Yeah, I've discovered them. Nice one, Chris.
And the other tip is from the Design Life, said, I have the same with redness on my video, so my wife adds me a little bit of foundation and it fixes the problem.
Oh, that's a novel route.
Yeah, maybe I need to do that. That's a good tip. Who was that, Liam?
Design Life.
All right, lovely. Thank you very much. Good tip. I'll bear that in mind.
Keep them coming in, ladies and gents. And we are going to move on. Now, this is the section where we're going to ask Matt a series of quick questions. Now, can he get on our leaderboard in the Fresh Fire round?
I have no idea what to expect from this. I've not kind of experienced this before. So
no, not many people have.
But now you've said leaderboard, I kind of want to win. Like it's a thing. I can't help it. So how do I win, Gareth? How do I get points?
It seems like we seem to attract people with a slight competitive streak on this show, which is a theme. So that's good.
It's a problem.
Healthy competition. it's something we're all working on. So Fresh Fire round. This is your opportunity to get on that leaderboard, which is a coveted prize, might I add. We have had a few people already there. I think who's at the top at the moment, Liam?
It was our last guest, Mr. Adrian Lemon. He is at the top of the leaderboard currently. I'm not going to reveal the time, as we want to keep it tense.
Yeah, so we have a series of questions for you, Matt, and this is where you can take control. You can choose a number between, well, I'll tell you what's left. 1, 2, 5, and 8.
I'll go 2.
Number 2. Ooh, good choice.
Do we get a prize for that? Is that right? Is that right?
That's your first question answered.
Hey, can I just say, before we play, do I get a prize if I win?
There is definitely a prize. Yeah, there is
Brilliant.
a prize. It's just currently in conceptual construction, let's call it.
Okay, but make it
We
good.
might, we might actually give you. I think one of the prizes we were thinking about getting was actually the book Storyatogy. I don't know if you'd be interested in that.
Yeah, it's not bad, that book. All right, brilliant. Hey, so can you explain the rules to me, because I understand it's quick fire. I've got the pressure, the tension that Liam's mentioned is prevalent. What do I have to do?
So you get 10 questions, and you need to answer them in the shortest amount of time possible.
Okay, and so the winner is the one that has done it in the shortest amount of time. What if you take ages asking the questions?
It's the
This
same
was
question
asked
I get
last
asked
time.
every week. I have a well lubricated
Well, you
mouth.
better be quick, Gareth. I'm counting on you, buddy.
I'm going to do my best for you, mate. I will do my best to get you on that leaderboard. Don't you worry.
Let's do it.
Mr. Matt Davies, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Mr. Kingswell, are you ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. What's the hardest thing that you've ever done?
Father children.
TV show you enjoy?
Dragon's Den.
What brand are you a fan of?
Apple.
Do you put butter on before peanut butter?
Yes.
Favorite day of the week?
Monday.
When I say fresh, you say?
Friday.
Yay!
Sales and marketing.
What? Say that again?
Sales and marketing.
Neither.
What is your favorite cheese?
Stilton.
What's your dream car?
At the moment, a Land Rover.
Do you like spicy food?
Yes.
There we go.
Am I done? Under a minute.
59 seconds. It was a very good score. But the big question is, Liam, where does that put Matt? Is he at the top of our leaderboard?
Technically, Matt is in joint second place.
Aww.
So, because Adrian got 53 seconds.
Hang on. Can I just say something? Gareth, right, did not pronounce sales and marketing in a pronounceable way, right? In an understandable way. So, like, I think I should. I mean, how long did it take him to say that? Sales and marketing. I reckon that's about 3 seconds. So I reckon I should. I'm just saying. But you know,
I said it twice. And the fact you've moved to Wales, Matt, you've got to get used to these northern dialects. You know, you've got. Well, Wales isn't north. I know that, but it's a thick accent. You've got to get used to it.
Maybe I should have asked the questions this time round.
Your accent is not Welsh.
It's not Welsh. It's not. I'm just literally covering myself. But them the rules, mate. It is Gareth. I know what I'm talking about here.
Oh, well, good job, Matt. You are in second place.
Look, that counts for something. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, and I hope that was interesting. Yeah, there's some interesting questions in there. Sales or marketing. I thought that was an interesting one because that's how we tend to sort of play off against the two things. But obviously, as a brand guy, like I see all of them as instruments of the brand. So I don't like to prioritize sales, marketing, even operations or HR or leadership or anything like that. I like to see them all as equally subservient to the brand. So that's why I answered that way.
It's actually really interesting because our guests that we've had on before, our first guest said marketing, our second guest said both, and you said neither, which is really interesting because with what you're saying, I agree. Like it's almost like this like list all of these things. It's just a small cog in the engine that combines into something bigger. So that's really interesting. And there are a couple of people in chat saying we should minus 5 seconds off. Tim Elliott says agreed, minus 5 seconds.
5 seconds. If that was to take place, Liam, where would that place my score?
Well, you'd still be second.
Take them off.
Also, Eddie Lopez is here. Hey, Eddie, how you doing? He goes, I'm with Matt. Sounded like sales marketing. I'm Scottish and I missed it. And our sentences sound like single words.
Love that.
Right, next time we're switching roles, Liam. I'll press the button. You ask the questions. I think that's only fair.
Look, I'm big enough to cope with it. It's fine. Like, we can move on. It's honestly, I'm not bitter. I just hate you. It's fine.
Well, we did want you back, but maybe this put the axe in it. No, good sport, Matt, and thanks for. I know you didn't pre-agree to that, so thank you for doing it. It's how we roll. Guys, keep your questions coming in. We will come to many of these, I suppose, throughout the stream. So keep them coming in and keep chat going. Matt, I know you've just touched on brand as this holistic piece. And today we're talking about the toughest brand problems. We had a quick sync, didn't we, before? And I know we've come up with a couple of things which we think are relevant. And one of them things that I wanted to talk about is relevance. Being relevant today is like a really difficult one that I think Liam and I have come up against with clients, and we've come up against it in a different context with our own brand as well. Like, for you, is that one of the toughest brand problems? And how can brands kind of overcome it?
Yeah, so relevance, I would say, is one of the biggest and toughest brand problems. And even more so now that we face COVID, right? Because things that perhaps were normal 2 years ago now are no longer normal. And behaviors which we would easily predict 2 years ago are now unpredictable. And we don't know when there's a new vaccine. We don't know, particularly in hospitality and in some of those sectors, it's an absolute nightmare to become to be relevant. But even if you're not in one of those sectors, even if you're in a B2B or another kind of consumer sector, at the end of the day, you need to make sure your brand is relevant. So remember what I said at the start, like, your brand is the meaning people attach to you. And if you think about why we buy stuff, why do we dig deep into our pockets to purchase anything? Usually behind there's obviously a reason. Sometimes we don't realize the reason. Sometimes we think it's an impulse buy, but there's usually a reason. And the reason usually is to do with a desire that we have or a problem that we're looking to solve. So something that we're trying to become or something that we're trying to overcome, right? So you've got to think about it from that perspective. Now, from a business perspective, I think it's Peter Drucker that said that businesses exist basically to create customers and to serve those customers. And if we have that focus and we have that lens, then we need to be relevant to those customers. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business, right? Because if we're irrelevant, no one's going to buy our stuff. So the next sort of following on question is as well, how do we become relevant then, right? How do we solve that challenge? And my answer, guess what, is brand and branding and the principles of that. So what do I mean by that? Well, we've got to, one of the biggest questions in branding and to do branding properly is this question, who do we serve? Yeah. And I find that a lot of businesses, they have set themselves up in a way that actually makes decision-making and puts decision-making quite far away from the customer. So I do a lot of work with exec teams and boards and leadership teams. And what you find is that these folks, although they might say, yeah, we understand we've got to be customer-centric, we've got to put the customer first, they're so many onion rings away from the customer. And if the business hasn't set up mechanisms, like designed, considered mechanisms through which they can continually listen to the customer, understand the customer, figure out how that customer is behaving and feeling and the desires of that customer, the problem that you're going to get is you're going to swiftly become irrelevant over time. because you're not getting close to it. So the answer in simple terms is to get close to your customer. And it's funny, I've got a client just last week that asked me to put together some ideas. I've been working with them for a while, and we've been doing insight groups with their customers on an ongoing basis. So I think we've done one a month, and they said they'd seen so much value in that because they suddenly had a way they could begin to listen to customers. They asked me to put together a program for next year and the year after, whereby we would do this on more regular basis and make it more of a thing, so that people would join, almost like online events. They'd hear experts in their sector talking about the things that were bothering the sector, and the customers could network, and my client could listen in to all of that conversation, which currently there was no kind of designed way of listening to what the customers were saying and doing. There's other ways of doing it. There's a load of design thinking tools where you can get close to your users or your customers and see how they behave in their natural environment. But the key thing here is that you've got to get the leaders in the organization to understand the customer, how anything that maybe has changed, and then redesign and rethink and redeploy their resources and innovate in order to remain relevant. And I could talk about that a lot, but I've realized I've just talked quite a bit. So what do you think about that, Gareth? Like, what are your thoughts? I'll throw that back at you and see if you want to, answer from your perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the thing about relevance for me, I always think of not necessarily brands as in companies, but I always think of celebrities as a great example of how to stay relevant. Because if you look at some of the most famous people who've done this time and time again, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, these figures who have been around for decades and decades, yet every single decade they've managed to repurpose themselves in a new way. Like if you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, the bodybuilder, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, the governor of California, you wouldn't think them two things are the same guy, the same brand, but they are. They are the same brand. They are Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I know that's a person, but for me, like the term relevance always becomes a lot more tangible when I think about them type of examples, like how they've stayed relevant with people throughout these generations.
Yeah, I think the problem with business is we need to be more agile, right? So we think we've set the business up, we think we've done our branding, and then we kind of put that to the back of our minds, and we just like to kind of chug along in that. But the truth is that's a false way of looking at things, right? We've got to continually rethink, relook at what's going on. And so I really, really do believe that businesses that succeed are going to be those businesses that design these sort of systems of thought of checking in with their customers and their audience on an ongoing basis. That could be anything from after a purchase to and asking people, how did you feel about this, right the way through to some events-based sort of stuff that I've been talking about previously. And the key here is, I take COVID as an example. When COVID broke out, it was chaos and still is chaos for some businesses. But I don't know, did you guys see what Kraft Heinz did? Heinz baked beans, right? I was amazed at what they did because they're a massive company. They've got, thousands of employees. And, so you'd think, well, that's going to be quite hard for them to be agile and nifty, right? Mm-hmm. But literally, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks after everything shut down. If you recall, we couldn't get food because the supermarkets were, there was a run on the shelves, right? And it was very, very hard to get delivery slots to get food delivered. So Kraft Heinz, as a classic example of this, how do they stay relevant to customers in this way? How do they help the customer? They put together a new product in literally record time. It was a £10 food box with 16 kind of items in it. It was called Heinz to Home. I think it's still going. I'd have to double check. And basically, what they did was they did a deal with a delivery partner, a logistics partner, to get these out. So they set up an e-commerce website, full operations, full systems, repackaged that product, got that to market in literally 3 or 4 weeks, new product offering, right? Straight up there. And they got that out. Now, that's relevance to customer. That's being close to the customer. And then from that, they did this essentials bundle, but they then invented, I think they've got another one, a sources bundle, and then a baby bundle. So, amazing work. And, we think of being agile and nifty and nimble as really being kind of a startup thing, but Heinz proves that it can be done. And so I would encourage all business leaders to think about that. As things have changed, if you think of Abraham Lincoln's hierarchy of needs, like at the bottom, there was safety, right? And at the top, there's self-actualization. And a lot of brands in the B2C space or the direct-to-consumer space, they operated and have been operated in that kind of that higher level of Abraham Lincoln's hierarchy of needs. But when COVID hit, everything came crashing down to the bottom, and we were worried about toilet roll and stuff like that. Those brands at the top were continuing to ping out their irrelevant marketing materials about, becoming, exuding an identity of luxury and leisure. And people are literally worried about grandma, so it was irrelevant. But Heinz, you see, they didn't continue to ping out that high level marketing stuff. They did something about it to be relevant. And so that's my kind of advice to us. We need to think like that.
It's so good. We've got a ton of questions coming in, so it's good. Like Ben Hurrell's asked a question around irrelevance, and I think that little bit that we just mentioned there kind of answers that question for you, Ben. Eddie says, Matt, with brand often being a confusing topic, I find clients don't always realize that the issues they have are brand related. How do you, I think we can all appreciate and understand this question. How do you help your clients, find you how do you help your clients find you and help them understand that you can solve their problems? How do you handle that conversation of they go, that's not a brand topic, but it is a brand issue. How do you deal with that?
So how do you make brand relevant?
Maybe.
Yeah, how do I become relevant? That's a good question. Yeah, no, well, there's so many dimensions to that question. For me, how do I do that? Well, the truth is, and this is the blunt and horrible truth, which no one wants to say, but I will say it anyway. The truth is you can't help everybody, right? That's the truth. There's an old school way of doing business, and that is entrenched in people's minds. It's been educated into them. They've run businesses in silos. We talked about sales and marketing and, all these things. They're so, in my view, they're old fashioned. And let me just qualify that in a minute, because people are going to be like, what? How is sales and marketing? The way that we run our businesses is becoming a problem, because we are not sticking everything together. We're going, your marketing, your sales, your HR, and you guys just go off into your silos and operate. And the truth is if a business is set up like that and they're ingrained in that and they do not wish to the leadership does not want to open their minds to new ways of agile thinking, new ways of putting the brand at the center, then the truth is there's no way you're going to get through. But as time is going on, we're finding more and more leaders more open to those sorts of conversations. They're listening more. They can see that this old way of doing things is not creating great customer experiences. It's not attracting the best employees, because employees that are smart are starting to think about, well, how can I make a real difference in the world? And that old school way of operating is not the best way to make a difference. Now, obviously, these are sweeping generalizations, and I appreciate every business is different. So I'll just caveat everything I've just said with that. And so I'm not just kind of making huge blanket statements without realizing every context is different. But I do think there's this general trend towards smaller, agile, team-based sort of activity. There's a bigger trend towards automation of tasks that can be done kind of in a list kind of way. Creativity and thinking is what we need from businesses today. And that comes from multidisciplined teams, people from all parts of the organization being pulled together around a common goal. So, that's well recognized relatively in a lot of kind of thriving, larger businesses. I think smaller businesses have it naturally, but where we have these challenges is in mindset. So how do I get people out of that mindset? Well, frankly, by doing talks like this, by preaching, by getting the message out, by writing articles and doing what I can. And really, if somebody's not interested in that way of doing things, then, frankly, I respect that. That's up to them, but I'm not the consultant for them. But if they are looking for change, if they're looking for something different, if they're looking to put brand first and build a long-term strategy for their business, then I'm your man. If you're short-term, if you're looking at your sales and figures for this quarter, I'm probably not the best guy to chat to. So there we are.
Well, I think you've answered Eddie's question, because he says I'm nodding my head here.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Thank you, Eddie.
There's a ton more questions coming in, but I think what we'll do, I think some of them come on to some of the subjects we've got coming up as well. And great segue as well, Matt. One of the other things that we did want to talk to you about is this idea of long-term. We see this as probably one of the biggest challenges that we face, not internally, but more speaking to clients. And I think even the largest brands now are working on a 6-month or a quarterly basis. Even it's crazy, because we're in tough economic times, I suppose, and that might continue. But I suppose, first off, I know you just touched on it there. Long-term strategy. How do you see that as a brand problem?
So, great question. Long term. So the brand should be about long term, and by that, what I advocate is that brands should be here for a reason other than making money, right? So when you talk to most business leaders, you're like, so why do you exist? Like, what are we doing? And they're like, well, this year we're going from 15 million to 20 million, and you say, okay, great for you, right? Great for you and for your team, but what are you trying to achieve here? What is the thing that we're trying to do? What's bigger than money? Money isn't everything. And yeah, money might be everything to you, but to your customer, the customer does not care that you want to get rich. The customer does not care that you want to expand and go global. The customer does not care about that. The customer cares, as I said at the start, about something they're trying to overcome or something they're trying to be. So to become. So what is that thing? And I think what happens is we've got, as I say, there's this old school mindset in business whereby we very much see ourselves in a kind of an industrial revolution kind of style approach to business. And by that, what I mean is in the industrial revolution, the winners of the companies that were winning were the ones with the factories, right? They had a factory and it could produce stuff. And so that gave a mindset like, oh, we're in the cabinet making factory business. So we make cabinets and it's about what we do. And that then led rise to interruption-based advertising, where we would run around saying, buy one of our cabinets, buy one of our cabinets. And 99% of people said no, 1% said yes. So we just knew that the more people we interrupt and ask them whether or not they could buy our cabinet, the more people, the more of the 1% would grow. And so we could grow our businesses. So it's a nice kind of tidy mindset, but that's super annoying for customers, super annoying, and doesn't actually work as a way of growing a business today as much, because we screen out interruptions. The power has shifted from that model, which is where the power was with the business and the factory, to a different model. And the new model is that the power shifted to the customer. So, it shouldn't be about we're in the cabinet making business. We need to think about we need to put the customer first, not the product first, the customer. So who is buying our cabinets? Who are we making these cabinets for? What do they care about? Why are they buying our cabinets as opposed to another cabinet? Now, we need to have a long-term vision for that type of person, that customer group, that tribe, if you like, of people who are there to, our job, as I said, one of the biggest questions is, who do we serve and why should they care? So if we are serving, let's say, for example, we're serving, relatively well-to-do, affluent families who are buying furniture that will last because they've got young families, young kids. And they are buying this furniture because they want it to look great, even though they've got kids who are running around bashing the house up or whatever, right? And we build a picture by the way, this is off the cuff, so I haven't prepared this. So sometimes this could go really wrong when I sort of go through random examples like this, but bear with me. So we build a picture of that person. What do they desire? They desire a really lovely house. They desire a place where they can bring their friends around, but they also desire a place where their families can live and where it doesn't really matter if little Johnny or little Jenny bashes the cabinet with their toy. It doesn't look too bad. So we're making these cabinets for that type of person. And so the way that you might come to that is by doing your customer research, by finding it out, or by selecting that from a pool of types of customer that you know could find value in what you do. Now, here's the thing. Long term, rather than saying we're in the cabinet business, we're going to just sell cabinets to that audience. You need to get close to that customer, close to that type of group of people. How might you do that? Well, if we know that they're parents, we might put on go to classes or go to webinars that are all about parenting or events around that. We might kind of, do a deal or do some collaborative work with an expert in rearing children or something and get involved in that side of things. Yeah, you're a cabinet maker, but you're making it for that type of customer. So you'd sponsor, you get close to that type of customer. And then from there, you can listen. So as the needs of that customer may change, they might change with technology. They might change with, with style, with attitudes to style of the cabinets, etc. that you're making. You can kind of pivot, you can change, you can evolve. But under all of that, and here's another lovely big brand word that gets a lot of stick. Under all of that, you can begin to define your purpose. So your purpose might be something like to create livable furniture or furniture that you can live with or something like that. Now that remains relevant long term. So, okay, so we're going to create furniture that we can live with. And we know what that means in the context of our customer base. So as time goes on, what does that mean for us? The longer term strategy is that we want to do that for the world. Every purpose should be big, right? Building furniture that we can live with for the world or something like that. So what then that gives you is a drive, a very long-term drive, a long-term vision of where you want to go. You want to help as many people of that type of customer on the planet. So that then means, okay, so if we're starting in Manchester and that's where our shop is, well, great, let's start our purpose, let's start living into that in Manchester. But as we grow that, let's branch out, let's go online, let's have an e-commerce site. Okay, so now we've got that. How do we fulfill in America? Or where is the most opportunities for us to fulfill? Do we go into some sort of distribution system where we're helping the world with livable furniture? Whatever it might be. The point I'm trying to make is that brand thinking gives you that North Star, gives you that vision of why we're all getting out of bed in the morning. We're not getting out of the bed to sell.
Oh no. Not get up. I don't know. Passion level through the roof. That's what's happened.
It is. It clearly is. Like Matt has hit that pinnacle. We said about him glowing. Maybe he needs to go back to monochrome just to feel calming down. Matt will join us back in a second. Great point what he's making though. I think long-term vision for brands is essential. I think me and you see eye to eye on that. I'm sure a lot of people do. I think that the problem that a lot of brands are facing as well is that all kind of gets pushed to one side, doesn't it, too often? And I think, I feel for a lot of companies as well, like doing that thinking amongst other things like getting sales is just one of them things that people go, oh, I'll deal with it later.
It's not just the strategy, is it, as well? It's just like the thinking, like some people are thinking like so short term of like, we've got to hit this figure for this quarter, we've got to hit this for this half and whatever. And it's kind of like, it's more than that. It's like a bigger picture. But then there's always back. He's back. Let me bring him back in. Hello,
I apologize.
Matt. Sorry right.
About that, everybody.
That's all right. No worries.
I'm back now.
We were just wrapping up what you were saying there, and I think that there's one thing that sort of jumps to my mind. Like, we completely agree with everything, like around that, like having this all up purpose as such. How do you deal with people that they're almost that stubborn that they still don't see it that way. Like, you must get that where you speak with those people and they have the same sort of, they go, oh, well, actually, no, I'm still focused on the sales, rather than, how do you deal with that conversation?
I sympathize with them in the sense that, you know, there is here, let me just say one thing, actually. There is a place for short-term thinking. Don't get me wrong. There is a place for that, particularly when you mentioned, like, with COVID 6-month strategies, there is a place for that. But without a longer term sort of way of thinking, without a brand way of thinking, what you're going to end up doing is just the short-term gains. And you're not going to be thinking about some of the most important things, like creating value. You're not going to be thinking about that. You're going to possibly end up racing to the bottom of the and become commoditized, because you're not going to be thinking about the longer term value you're adding to your customer. Now, how do I deal with that? 2 ways. I try and help people, right? I try and discuss it. I try and give them facts and figures. But at the end of the day, as I said, you can't help everybody. And if they're fixed in that way, then fair enough. But thankfully for me, there's plenty of people out there, plenty of CEOs, plenty of leadership teams that do want to change, that do want help in this area, that do want to continually create value for their customers. And so great. So frankly, if you don't want to change, that's fine. You know, good luck. But I'm here to help you build a solid brand for the future. So for me, I think brand thinking should be 10 to 20 years, in terms of the way that it thinks. I did one recently for a B2B client, and we had a 10-year strategy, and with a 5-year kind of mid sort of check-in, so we know whether we're there or not. And then, of course, the business itself is used to doing short-term management, and of course, you want that, and you want to delegate that out to the various, leaders within the team, and that's their job, right? So they're then working on their kind of for next year, the year after, the year after that, and chunking it down. But the brand can give it a good 10-year vision, and it's customer centric. That's the key thing. It's not about money. It's not about, oh, we're gonna be turning over X million pounds then. Who cares? What are we doing for the customer? The money will come, the money will follow if we're creating that vision. And that's where brand long-term thinking can get you.
I think, again, the way I always think about stuff like this is it's very similar to sickness or ill health. I always find there's parallels in that, in a sense that I think as a society, especially in the UK and in our society, we're quite fixed on fixing problems with simple solutions. Like, for example, I've got a cold, I'm going to take some medication which is going to stop the symptom. I've got X disease, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to jab myself up with some injection and I'm going to feel better for a short amount of time. And for me, it's the same kind of thing that's happening with brand. Like, we're looking for these quick fix solutions which plaster over a problem, which is actually a bigger crack. And if we actually went back to the root cause, for example, in my analogy, like maybe improving your general health, maybe like doing some exercise, maybe like taking some vitamins and upping that that longer term game of your health. It's the same thing for brands, I think. Like, I think we're just so obsessed with covering things up with little tactics and strategies that don't really mean anything. They just kind of
that's a really great analogy. Can I just come in there? Sorry to cut across you. I just excited about that analogy because it rings so true. Because if you think about it, right, with health, okay, do you ever go for an exercise, go running or something, and then go, right, I'm done, right? I'm now fit. That's it. No, you don't.
That's me done.
What do you do?
I do. That's my mentality towards it. I'm like, I'm done. I'm out.
but the truth is, if you want to remain healthy, you do it as a routine, as a habit, regularly, right? So this is the thing that I say to business leaders, right? We can sit down, we can set a brand strategy up, but if we're not building into our business routines and habits that hold us accountable, that hold us to the vision that we've got. If we go back to kind of just thinking about the short term, we're going to become unhealthy. as a business. So I quite like that analogy. You know, you can't just take a pill. There's little things you can do. You can take a shot in the arm of something and it'll perk you up for a bit, but that's not healthy. You know, you need to do the work. And you're right. I think we like to think in business, oh, there's going to be like some short-term thing. We'll just get, even with me, sometimes like people just think, oh, we'll just wheel Matt in. He'll sort everything out. And I do sort stuff out, but what I preach is long-term stuff. You know, as we build our values, if we select our values, that's great, but that's only a tiny part of actually using them from a business perspective to be able to create real value for the customer. How are we building the values into our culture and our employee experience, and how do customers experience those values? They're the things and you can't just do that and be done. You have to continually do that because you've got new people coming on board, you've got new systems coming in all the time, new technology, and customers are changing. So this idea of relevance, this big, tough brand problem, which we started with, is kind of like this moving target. And you've got to constantly be checking in with customers, constantly thinking, listening, and innovating for them. So that's a massive challenge. And the reason it's a massive challenge, as I would suggest, is we've kind of got this old school way of looking at the way that we do business, and we need to break out of that. We need to put customers first.
It seems like such a simplistic answer, but we find the exact same challenges at in a lot of brands that we work with. Like, there is just so little interaction with customers. We've become so distant, whether that's down to technology, whether that's down to social media. Clearly, with the situation we're all in now, it's not as easy as physically interacting with customers, but there are so many ways in which you can do that. I think you touched on it before with the virtual events. You mentioned it as well. Just actually getting in contact with them. You know, reach out with them with an email. There's so many customers out there, and we often call them fans as well, who will actively go out of their way to give you this golden information. Which, if you just take the time to listen rather than speak, it will.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing to think about, because you mentioned social media there. I think social media is awesome for businesses, you know, particularly B2C brands, because they can use that to listen, right? Because people are chatting amongst themselves, chatting amongst the tribe. What do you think about this? Oh, I like this. You know, forums, Amazon reviews, whatever it might be. Use those things to listen. And this is the thing, though, about routines. You have to almost like build that into your business. You have to give that to somebody for their job, or outsource that to somebody to do. And then you need to ask for reports, and then you need to build that into how your leadership are reviewing it. And that without those sort of designed mechanisms, you're just going to go, oh yeah, we'll listen, and just every now and again check on our Twitter feed or something. That's not good enough. You need to have somebody obsessed about what people are talking about. That's the voice of brand. That's the brand person or the CBO who would set that up. If you're interested in CBOs, as I say, we've mentioned Marty Neumeier before, but he's super keen on sort of pushing that concept that the brand has a place in the top table, that marketing doesn't report into, well, brand doesn't report into marketing, but marketing should report to brand, because it's the bigger management of the thinking of the business around the customer. So just a few thoughts there. Have we got any other big brand problems that you want to kind of go through, Gareth?
We've got one, and it is a heavy hitter. The final one that we're going to talk about, I wonder if people in chat recognize this about brands they follow, or even their own brand. It can be quite exposing when you do this on yourself as well.
Oh no, I know what's coming.
Don't expose yourself, Gareth.
We've had Mitch Duckler on, and he coined the phrase. I've got to give props to Mitch Duckler, because he came on, and it is his term, but I still use it. Brand monotony, or this idea of copycat mentality. It is rife. It is absolutely rife. And this is a big problem. What do you think the problem is with that? Why has this problem come about, and why does it exist, first of all, Matt?
So, why does it exist? I think it's just a facet of human nature, because we, as I talked about the old school model of doing business, we have business leaders, and it's a natural thing. What you do is you feel that you're operating in a marketplace, which you define, right? The category you define. Let's take, I don't know, I just use a basic one. Let's take Netflix, right? Who would you say Netflix's competitors are? Well, you'd say, or maybe like I don't know, Apple TV,
Disney Plus,
Sky, some of those, right? Mm-hmm. Fine. Yeah, I mean, there's loads that you could think of, right? But here's the thing. That's because we think, okay, the category is online entertainment, right? And then we box or who are the players in online entertainment? We box them all in there. But the truth is, and this is a very broad example because you'll take my point away from it though. If we sat down with a group of people that Netflix was trying to actually serve, and we sat down with them and we said, look, you can choose to watch Netflix. What are the other choices available? First of all, what are you trying to achieve? Well, I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to get entertained. Okay, so what are the other places you go to? Now, I bet you any money they would have some of those other competitors on there, but they'd also have things like the Xbox or going for a run or playing football or yoga or stuff like that. And so suddenly when you actually, I mean, that's a kind of quite a broad example, but when you actually sit down and you talk to your customers about truly who the competition is, you have a completely different way of seeing the world because you don't look at it from the category that business school has told you exists. You look at it from the category of the tribe of your customer and your fans, so to speak, to use your term, Gareth. You look at things from their perspective. Now, that gives you a completely different way of thinking. Now, I just mentioned that because as you actually kind of think through this, okay, so brand monotony is where we're all fighting for the same type of customer, and we're trying to win them over to us. And we have marketing as the seven like levers that you can pull, right? And often the easiest one to pull is price. So we just pull price. Yeah, let's just make it cheaper. Yay, short term, we win loads of new customers. But then the problem is our customer does that. Our competitor does that. And we end up in a race to the bottom. So is that really the best approach? And also it brings around monotony. So I bring out a new feature on my product. Competitor looks at that, goes, brings out the same feature on their product. Now we get feature overload, we get clutter, we get all this noise, and it becomes very, very difficult for us to kind of compete. And as you say, the key thing here is monotony. We all look the same. I did an audit recently in a B2B environment of a particular client of mine. They had about, I asked for their competitors. Actually, in fact, we asked the customers for their competitors. And the customers gave us like 20 names. Did an audit on all 20 names. All of their competitors used blue. No kidding. Blue and white. Every single one in the whole of that category globally was using blue and white. So you say, well, how does this come about? How does this phenomena happen in that we all want to look the same and sound the same? And I think it's the concept of safety, right? If you're a business leader and you're tasked by a board to grow revenue because we're all focused on revenue, you look around at the competitors in that fake market that you imagine is there, and you go, oh, they're doing X, Y, and Z, and they're growing, so we must do the same. But then you don't stand out. And then what you find is actually you don't win in that category. You don't become number one in somebody's mind because you're just the same as everybody else. And you're a commodity, and it's a massive problem. So we copy. That's the truth. That's what we tend to do. And also, often with the old school way of thinking, we've all grown up and been taught by similar textbooks from university, which teach us this old school way of doing business. How do we change? The secret, the answer is, as my good friend Marty Neumeyer would say, is to zag, right? So when everybody zigs, zag. You've got to go the other way. Time out. Gareth's going, you're waffling on.
No,
was that a timeout?
No,
it's a Z.
He's doing a Z.
Shut up, Matt. Time out. So I can shut up in a second.
No.
But yeah, you've got to stand out. You've got to be different. Seth Godin calls it being a purple cow. It's about being different. There's a great book. I don't know if I've got it around. It's up there somewhere. There's a great book on how to do this in a lot of depth. It's called Blue Ocean Strategy. And it talks about this concept of everybody being in a red ocean, like full of blood, like everybody's fighting for the same fish. But the aim should be to innovate something so valuable, so helpful, so useful, so different for your customer that you swim out and you're in a blue ocean. And the classic example of that is the Nintendo Wii. So games consoles was all about better and better graphics, and it was all about features. And there was Nintendo and Sega and all of these people. They were just kind of competing. Xbox on better and better graphics, PlayStation. But Nintendo looked at that and thought, we can't compete on that. So they did a lot of research, and they found that there was an audience that was not being served. In other words, families. And I think their team were tasked with the idea of how could we make grandma play a computer game, right? So now you're thinking completely differently. You've got a different market. How do we get grandma to play a computer game? Well, we changed the game. We changed the way it works. We use virtual reality. We use motion. We use movement. And so you innovate a completely new area, and they were first into that ocean. And, they mopped up, pretty much. So here's the thing. You've got to innovate. You've got to think differently. And when everybody zigzag, and there's a load of stuff about being first to market, if you can create something amazing, like the first in the market often dominates that market. There's tons of research behind that. So here's the thing. How do we stop monotony? Well, we can do different degrees of this. I mean, I'm radical, right? So I like to help businesses really create new stuff that really helps their customer. But even if you don't want to do that, even if you say, no, Matt, we're staying in this commoditized marketplace, my message is stand out for the right reasons. Listen to customers. Even if it's the way that you communicate, you've got to create something different. Give somebody a reason to choose you over the competition. Look at the way that the customer experiences the product, not just what they buy, how they open it, how they, the communications they get throughout it. Think about what the customer can become because of your product. Think about supporting them afterwards. And really kind of create an experience that's unique, because someone could copy your product, but it's very unlikely they can copy some of the other things that I've talked about around the experiences that you can bring to bear. And so, that's where the value is. That's where I think people can and businesses can really innovate. And as I say, the dream is to create something completely different for your tribe, so that they can kind of see huge value in it, and you can be first to market in a new place. That's what we should be focused on, not monotony, not the same old comms, the same old way of doing things, because it's just not going to work longer term, in my view.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think to double down on that point you said there about experience, that is the one that if you can get that right, and I think we're going to hopefully see that in retail, because I think retail's got a big old problem to overcome. But retail is one of them things that I always look at and think, I was having a chat the other day, and I was thinking, the last place I'm going to go right now is retail if it opens, unless there's a reason for me to go there. There's one or two places in Manchester where I live, which I would actually go to. And the main reason is it's just a cool place to go. It's not because they've got a specific product that I want. In fact, I go there because they've got products that I'd never see anywhere else. So this idea about just doing something a bit different and really thinking about not that specific product with all the features that is going to be right now. Think about how you're going to surprise, entertain, and take people to that new place, that new destination. And that doesn't have to be physical. I know we had to use retail as an example. That can be digital. That can be all sorts of different ways. So some really good points there. And I think that experience-led design is something that I think solves a lot of this brand monotony.
Yeah, the truth is that we don't want more stuff, do we? We don't want more products. We don't need that. Let's be honest. A lot of us are very blessed in that regard. What we're looking for is more meaning. And you can create that through experiences. You can create that through thoughtful ways of basically helping the customer become something. Build an identity. Here's a good question to ask when you think about these things. When somebody buys from our brand or experiences our brand, what do they become? I'm working with a watch brand over in the US in New York at the moment. We're building a brand. And we're doing exactly this. We're zagging in a massive commoditized environment. How do you create a watch brand that stands for something that other watch brands do not stand for? Watch this space. It'll be coming out later this year.
Hey, I see what you did there. Watch this space.
Watch
Love
this
it.
space. But if only I've done that deliberately, Liam. But here's the thing. The thing is, you've got to. If you're going to create something, if you're going to go to market with something, it's got to be a little bit different. And you've got to give someone a reason to buy it. They've got to become something. And I keep talking about B2B because it's a massive space where people say this sort of stuff doesn't really matter, and I would say it does. What kind of nowadays, you're right, Gareth. You can't just go and chat to kind of customers. Online conferences are not as meaningful as face-to-face conferences. Okay, so listen to the customers. If you're putting a conference on or part of a conference and they're bored stiff and it's monotonous, then listen, make it more exciting, make it more interesting. Create something that's unique that they can only get from your brand and your conference that you're putting on. Create stuff that people want to be part of. I just think this idea of cutting corners, I think we've just been too lazy. We've been too lazy. And this COVID thing has accelerated what would normally have taken 10 years. It's accelerated it into about 10 months. We've just seen Arcadia Group, is in all sorts of problems from a retail perspective. These are brands, these are retailers that did not innovate. Primark, I wouldn't surprise me if Primark gets in trouble soon if the vaccine doesn't come around, because they haven't invested and they've not really listened to how customers are buying. There's this massive shift. And as you said, Gareth, you can stay on the high street, you can stay in retail, but you need to start thinking about giving somebody a reason other than buying a cheap pair of socks, to come to your store. It's got to be more meaningful. What do I become when I go to Marks and Spencer and I have a coffee in the coffee shop and I browse through their products? What does that say about me? For some people, that's brilliant. That's for an older demographic. That's really what they want. But for younger people, maybe not. So you've got to kind of, Marks and Spencer, if we want to attract new younger customers, how do we create experiences that they want? Who is the tribe? Who are the people we're trying to serve here? And what do they become when they come across us? And they're the big questions. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff in there. As I say, I'll pipe down now because I get too excited. So sorry about that.
It's good.
DJ in the toilet. That's what Marks and Spencer need to do.
Mate, I'm up for that. That would be a reason to go.
There's someone in chat I think would be up to doing that. Actually, I think he'd.
Drum and bass when you go into the toilet at Marks and Spencer's. It'd be a riot. It'll be an absolute riot. Don't think that'll get signed off somehow. But it's right. Liam, is there any stuff that's been coming through in chat? We've gone through well over an hour here, and we're going to close up very shortly. But is there any stuff coming through in chat that we need to pick up on?
Just a couple of comments. Abdullah said The Purple Cow was a wonderful book. Maja is saying that it's a great discussion, so really useful. So yeah, a lot of comments. I also shared that book into chat as well about Blue Ocean Strategy. So if anyone's interested in getting that, you can check it out there. It's not an affiliate link or anything, but just click the link and it'll take you straight to the book.
Yeah, and one more. Martin Neumayer's Zag. Fantastic.
Oh yes,
book.
I'll do that.
Super important. If you want kind of a quick sort of read, I think you could probably get through it in an afternoon, or definitely over a weekend, and that will give you a lot of principles for innovation, and for going in the opposite direction, which sometimes seems counterintuitive. It's risky, but as Mark Zuckerberg once said, I think he said it a few years ago. I'd have to pull this quote to quote it exactly, but he said something like, "Any strategy that does not involve risk is destined to fail." We have to risk. Those that risk more possibly will win more. Yes, they could fail. But if we do it in iterative stages, you can negate that risk. So here's the key thing. Get close to your customers. Listen to their needs, listen to what they want, listen to their problems, and look for insights and for things that they may not even thought of themselves that would help them become what they want to become or overcome that challenge. And that would be sort of my parting thoughts on that one.
Mic drop moment. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Thanks for joining, Matt. We have got one small little section to get on with before we part our ways. And he looks happy about this, but It is called Keep It Fresh. Now, this is a hashtag that we use at Fresh Friday, Fresh Movement, for signifying how we're going to kind of keep ourselves fresh. Like wash hands, Tim Elliott. I like that one. Thinking in your mindset, your body, your soul. Matt, what is your Keep It Fresh tip for this week? What is the number one thing that you would like to add?
Well,
oh, I forgot about that. Sorry, Liam.
That's okay.
There's a whole thing. Okay, so yeah, for me, it kind of combines a lot of things. So as we mentioned at the outset, I've just moved to the countryside. Those that know me well know that I am I'm religious, right? I believe in God. It seems strange to me that everything in this world and all the beauty of it is just completely by chance, worldview, respected. But, I kind of feel like there's got to be something more. So for me, my good friend Chris Doe, he has a cap that he wears and it says, God is a designer, right? And so for me, it's like, God's created for me a lovely world for us. Nature is, even if you don't believe in God, nature is a fantastic way of kind of keeping you at peace, keeping you things in perspective. And so my advice, the way I kind of stay sane, is I like to spend time in nature. I like to look at it. And actually, when you do look at it, you realize there's all these mechanisms, systems, there's all these kind of really symbiotic relationships in nature, and wonder and beauty. And, just appreciating that can take you out of yourself and your own problems and your own stresses. And it can actually elevate your thinking. And I think you mentioned it, Gareth, to me a while ago. It's kind of like soul work, right? It helps you reflect. Look up at the stars if you can see them. If you're not in a city, think about the big questions and appreciate what you have. And there's some big things, but nature would be up there.
That explains why you've gone to the countryside.
Oh yeah.
That is a good tip. So, ladies and gents, if you want to join us this week and the next week on this week's Matt's Keep It Fresh challenge, we are going to be going out in nature. So that's our challenge. Liam's very happy about this one. We've had some ones that have tested us a little bit more.
No boxing, no swimming in a cold ocean. It's going to be walking in a park, touching trees and picking up sticks. It's perfect.
Hug a tree, Liam. That will make you feel so much better. If everybody hugged a tree, the world would be a better place.
Challenge. Like I live near a park. I often want to go to it, but it's giving myself permission that I've found is the difficult part, because I like to work out. I like to do a bit of reading. I like to do my emails. I don't like to do that, but they're all things that I've been putting. And
do it from the park. Exercise in the park. Do your emails in the park. Read a book in the park.
This is it. I'm not going to make any more excuses, and I don't think anybody else watching should as well. So take Matt's Keep It Fresh tip. We're going to be doing it, so follow us on social and join in. Let's see how we can keep it fresh over the next 2 weeks by getting out in Mother Nature. I think that's something that we can all do. We've got a few thank yous coming in. So how do you even pronounce that? Thaluma? Thalumama? You're better with this than I am, Liam.
Yeah, I'd say Thulamama, yeah.
Thulamama, great name. Saying thanks. Tim Elliott thought it was a pause. And a few people saying Zag is the book. And I think there's some really practical stuff in that. So I do also applaud that as a recommendation. Matt, before we depart, is there any way people can get in touch with you? We've got your @ down there, but is where you most active if people want to check you out?
Yeah, LinkedIn is my place. I'm slowly growing on Instagram, mainly by accident. I put a few things out a week on Instagram, but my main thing is LinkedIn. So that's Matt G Davies. Look me up. I always love new connections. Any questions, anything like that, drop me a line on LinkedIn. More than happy to see if I can help. The other thing is I do have a website. So if you kind of want to keep up to date with my latest thinking, it's Mr. That's Matt Davies, DAVIS.me. So you can check that out. I've got a blog there. I'm often weekly blogging about something or the other, and you can subscribe to that. So yeah, so any of those two will probably be the best places, or Instagram if you're not on any of those.
Yeah, might I add as well, your website is a really good source of inspiration and tools and tips as well. So good on you for that as well, Matt. It's something that we check out and we enjoy going on your website.
Thank you, Gareth.
Excellent. Matt, we will try and get you back because these discussions, I know we try and compress them down. I know we've gone over, but we try and compress them down into like an hour. Me and Liam's got a brand marathon scheduled at some stage, and I think we will bring back some familiar faces for some heated discussions around this stuff. Maybe we'll get Andy Starr and his bottle of whiskey on that one as well. So hopefully you can join that.
I think we should keep Andy off the whiskey. I did listen to that episode, and I love Andy. Like, I know Andy very, very well, and you know, even if he was here, I'd say it. Like, I think he got more. He's quite aggressive anyway as an individual. Like, he's a lovely guy, but he's very opinionated. But like, I think he got more and more aggressive as the whiskey glass went down. You know, which worries me. And I had a note to myself not to drink with Andy because of that. And when I said that to you, Liam, you said, note to self, drink with Andy.
Exactly. I want to drink with Andy because of that. I want to see where he goes. I'm interested.
I predict a riot. Could be awesome.
In Marks and Spencer's toilets with a DJ.
Hey!
Right. We digress. Ladies and gents, thank you all for joining because you have been legendary today. Please do us a favor. Chuck us a share, give us a like, get in the comments, whether you're watching live or on demand. And we will see you again in 2 weeks for another Fresh Friday.
See ya.
See you later.